Okay, the site we're looking at today is called the Cailleach Beara. It's a court tomb or a Neolithic burial megalith in West Waterford, and we're in the historic environment viewer of archaeology.ie, which has all known archaeological sites in the country. So, just to give you a bit of context here, village of Ardmore, the county town of Dungarvan, on Rhine, the West Waterford Gaeltacht is here at Helvick Head. And if we move down over to Anshanfobble, our old parish, we'll see where the Cailleach Beara is. So if we zoom in on the map, I think it's this lad. Yeah, so by clicking on the red dot, then we can see it's a megalithic tomb, a court tomb, Ballynamona Iachtrach, so lower Ballynamona townland, Ballynamona lower. It's located in rough pasture on top of a small headland with sea cliffs. This is a gallery of 2 chambers with 2 portal stones and a septal stone opening to the west. There is a court. Excavated by T E Powell in 1938, the chambers had been disturbed, but fragments of cremated bone, 2 pottery vessels, one of which was decorated, and flint flakes were found. And there's the reference then to Powell's article in 1938. He, I think at the time, was studying in Cambridge and came over to excavate the court tomb here. I've downloaded the PDF, and here it is excavation of a megalithic tomb at Ballynamona, Lower County, Waterford. So standard excavation report, location map, photographs taken by the local pharmacist Mongey, who we heard about in a chat with Nicholas O'Griefa. This is what the tomb looked like just when they were starting excavation. The forecourt from the southwest, and the cairn in the forecourt. And what I liked about this was there in the background there's 2 little boys in short pants. See them? And I wonder who they were. And here is Powell's map or plan of the site of the court tomb. The court is defined by these 2 uprights here. This space between those 2 uprights is the court, so it's an open space. And then the cairn would have covered these 2 burial chambers here. This hashed area here indicates where there was a hearth or a fire. So it's a ceremonial burial site. And as Muiris Uada, who came with us, said, is potentially the oldest standing structure in West Waterford. So that's what the court tomb looks like. And excavation photographs, your standard archaeological section drawing. So it's like you cut a slice out through the through a cake, and there you can see there's pits inside in the burial chambers. And there's one of those round-bottomed Neolithic pots. And I think that's what struck me about the visit, is going over there with Tommy. I went to visit a site, but when we got there I realised we were in a landscape. And if I can show you what I mean now by looking at the archaeology.ie website, if I click the digital globe, that gives us a nice satellite image. And here you can see that's where the site is. Now you can see it's been intensively farmed in that whole area, I suppose, like a lot of Ireland. The field adjacent has been improved. But what you'll notice is that it's there towards the edge of the cliff. There is a stream here, a glen right alongside it. Here I'll mark that. So where's the stream? It's going from off screen, from here to there to there. And this is an important aspect of Irish field archaeology. A lot of our sites are located to have access to fresh water. And there you see that that glen was important. If I can zoom in, can I? That farmstead there, that was the Mooney farmstead. That's where Tommy's people came from. I presume it's mid-19th century originally. It's one of those interesting West Waterford walled farmyards with the farmhouse and maybe some labourers' houses attached to it as well. But not only is there that glen, but there's also another one. I think is potentially why the Neolithic structure was built here, that burial site isn't just burial, it isn't just a one-off place, it actually represents the use of the landscape. So we're very much part of a Neolithic landscape here, and it shows people living in this part of West Waterford at the time. What was that, 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago? And it's over there in the Cailleach Beara. Now, what's interesting about the Cailleach Beara is it's called the Cailleach Beara or the Cailleach Beara. It relates to the hag, and the hag was a magical type figure who does still feature in folklore in the area. We spoke to Nicholas O'Griefa about it, and Tommy himself has stories about neighbours of his who would have encountered, let's say, followed maybe a hare went into an old ruined building, and you'd follow the hare into the building, and when you get in there, there was an old lady sitting there. On her own, and no sign of the hare, and she had been transformed from the hare into the old lady. That's the part of the folklore that relates to the Cailleach Beara, and it's not the only type of folklore that is actually attached to this site. Tommy, towards the end of the interview, talks about treasure being found down at the site, and Powell's report actually says that the site was disturbed. But it was interesting that the story of treasure attached to a very ancient archaeological site, I think, is a theme that we'll probably encounter in archaeology all over Ireland.
Yeah. I reckon a lot of these burials of family, right. The person inside might not be special the way we perceive
other than to the family itself. Yeah.
We always think, oh, it's a chief or a king or something fun.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Family is showing respect to family.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ancestral worship. About we'd have one or two of us on the back of the bike, and we'd have our tea there and that, and my grandmother was still alive at the time. She didn't. Her name was Mary Carey Mooney. She died in 1949. I have vague memories of her, even though I was about 10, say, before she died. But we didn't come over that often because my father went away to work in Dublin and Waterford and London in later years. But I remember him telling me about when they were kids how they used to play down around here and all over the farm generally. Yeah, they had a little boat that they used to launch down the Coon down to the right of us down there, and it was flat bottomed, so they were able to haul it up on the rocks and they'd go fishing. And I believe that they used it on one or two occasions when they were late teenagers, himself and his brothers, to go out looking for submarines, to contact the German submarines for the IRA. But they were young and foolish at the time. But I remember the last time I was here with my dad, our uncle, his brother, my uncle Michael, was with us also. That was known as Chaplain. He was here, and John Dane Mansfield was here with us. And I just stood in awe listening to them for about, I'd say, half an hour as they pointed out all the landmarks all around from here. It's not as clear a day today, so you can't see as many of them. He told me also one day that he was ploughing as a young lad. He was ploughing for his father down here in one of the fields here, and that his plough stuck into a mound of seashells just under the topsoil, and we presume there was some kind of an eating establishment that they had in ancient times.
Okay. So when Powell came here to excavate, it was Richard Mooney was the landowner, and his sons is what's in the report.
Richard Mooney was here from the I can't quite remember now offhand. I think it's the 1860s he came here. Okay. He married a Carey lady and they took over the farm here. And but Powell obviously was here in the 1930s, and so definitely they were here. And my father and them would have emigrated by then. There was only I'd say Eddie, my uncle Eddie, and maybe two aunts, Annie and Joan, were still here. Yeah, and his brother, his older brother Richard was also. In fact, Richard was in the first, and it was he, I believe, who more or less persuaded my dad to join up with them as well. You know, but they were on the run from the time, more or less from the time they joined it, because they were the two of them were always in trouble. Right. You know, they raided the lighthouse at one stage looking for arms. Yes. And they were on the run. So my father told me for 5 years he never slept in his own bed. He said he was up, he was in Ballynamona, he was in Kilgoblet, he was in up in Cumra, all over the place. You
Right.
know. Well, after that, he went to America as the Civil War ended. He'd been in jail during the Civil War, a lot of the Civil War. Yes,
Where
20.
was he in jail?
He was in the Curragh.
Right.
Curragh camp, Tin Town, they call it, you know, yeah. And when they were let out in Christmas 1924, long after the war had finished, they were kept there, you know. No charge, no court.
Yeah.
So when he came out, he couldn't even get work in the whole parish, you know, because his other brother had a farm at that stage, you know. And his dad was still alive. So he skipped off to Canada
Right.
with his cousins, the Mansfields from over here, Crowballa. And they went lumberjacking in Canada for a winter, which was, they weren't used to that kind of weather or that toughness, you know.
Yeah.
So they only stuck it for that winter,
Right.
and they sneaked across the border into America. And I had a story with that because I believe that a gang of them infiltrated a busload of day trippers who were up from America to see the Niagara Falls.
Right.
And had gone across the
Right.
border.
Right.
So they sneaked themselves back with them. And one of them was a relation of Tim Pat Coogan's.
Right.
He had a hat that he'd bought in Canada. And of course, when the customs man saw it, he was turned back. He wasn't allowed to go. The others got down to America, down to New York. And my father and Jim Mansfield then, they got word that the immigrant authorities were after them, you know. So they skipped off over to California,
Okay.
and they spent a couple of years over there.
Would they have been there in the 30s, Tommy?
No, they came back to New York. My father got naturalised, some kind of a scheme with Foley's in Canada.
Okay.
They were related to him. He was able to get papers and come
Okay.
back to New York, and he met my mother there.
Okay.
He'd already known her from Ardmore, from going to Caileach's and house parties and that kind of thing,
Yes.
you know. So they got married in 1931, and
Okay.
then De Valera came to power, and they thought, right, the Republicans have our law, took an ish,
Yeah.
and they all headed back.
Okay.
A gang of them, loads of them came back then in
Right.
1932,
Right.
and some did well out of it.
Yeah.
My father was offered a farm over here to buy fairly cheaply, but my mother wouldn't have it.
Yes.
She said there'd be no cow shit at my door, she said. So she wouldn't have it. So he started a bakery
Right.
for some reason, because the man had never baked a pan loaf or a soda bread in his life. But he started a bakery, and he got a bloke from Youghal to help him to make the bread. But Jimmy Rooney told me that as soon as my dad was gone off in the van delivering the bread, the baker was up in Rooney's pub, down in pints or bottles at the time. You know. So that the war came then, and that failed. The bakery
Right.
failed. So he joined the coast watchers,
Okay.
and he was up in the Ram Head in charge of the lookout post up there. You know.
Yeah.
And he was there till the end of the war, and then he went for a while to Waterford. He worked on that cinema as a carpenter, on that cinema, the Regina, which is knocked down again since. And from there, with Sisk, he went to Dublin, and he worked on the Blanchardstown Hospital and Store Street
Right.
station. He worked on both of those. He got to be a foreman carpenter
Right.
while he was with Sisk.
Right.
But then work petered out, so he had to go to England. He went
Right.
off, and he was in England then until 1964 or 5,
Right.
64. I think. And that's when when he came home around then, that's when I met Sean Wade, Mauritius' granddad.
Okay.
He came over to see him once or twice.
Okay.
And he contracted cancer and died in 1971.
Right.
Yeah, but he had it for a couple of years,
Right.
very, very poorly. That's why I came home myself from England, because of that. You know.
Right.
So that was his story, if you
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah.
There's other that they were up in Kilgarnet. There's one or two tombstones up there which mention Mooney,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty certain that one of them at least is definitely on our line of descent.
Okay.
You know, a woman who claimed that she came from Kilcolman, because that's where they came from Kilgarnet,
Okay.
and then they branched out into Ballynamona here and there.
Right.
And I can't say I do, because I've never experienced anything like it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't affect me that much, because I'm 80 years of age, so I don't get out and about as much as I used to, you know.
Right,
So
right.
being in lockdown didn't really
Yeah.
take that much stress on me, you know. Put
Yeah.
that much stress on me, you know?
Yeah.
But I can understand now, like people like my own son Thomas, you know, people like that, young people like
Yeah.
that, they must find it very difficult.
I think it's hard.
You know,
on
yeah,
young people,
it must be.
The uncertainty.
Yeah. But
Is there anything we can tell them that'll help them?
well, yeah, there is. I'd say
what
that.
your mum and dad went through, you know.
Yeah, I was just going to say that actually. People get much worse cards dealt to them in life. You know, they're still alive here and they're still able to enjoy music and enjoy art or whatever, you know, and reading and everything else that they can still enjoy, you know, if they're that bent. And I do. I think it's a shame actually that it's abandoned like this, you know, and neglected. I think there should be a proper pathway to the nearest road, proper road, that people can come and look at it, you know, because and clear the monument itself and keep it cleared, you know, because you know it's probably one of the oldest marks of our history that we can find in this area, you know. Cailleach Beara, yeah, that was I remember as a kid hearing the name Cailleach Beara, and I had no idea what it meant, and it was never even explained to me. Everybody just knew it as Cailleach Beara, and that was it, you know. This is only in later years I read a little bit about the Caileach. That there was probably, I can imagine that as youngsters they were probably a bit frightened by it, at the back of their minds. Maybe at night time they wouldn't come down here, that kind of a thing, you know. I'd imagine there was always a kind of a superstition or something. And I've heard so many stories about them finding gold and all this kind of thing, you know. So that Nicholas's story about the room full of sovereigns probably came from there, you know. They had a story about Mooney's finding gold in the Cailleach Beara, you know, and that's how they were able to buy the farm up here and all this, you know. So.
Muiris Uada, Sanam Dum, from here, Shan Fubble, a local archaeologist, and I suppose I came down with the lads because a place like this, it's incredibly important. It's one of probably the oldest man-made monument in this part of Waterford, and it's a shame to see it so inaccessible. It would be nice to get a path down here and get this cleaned up, and make it much easier for people to visit and make sure it's looked after for the future.